So, Wuthering Waves closed beta test came out today. Uh-oh.
I'm sure you've seen so many people talking about Wuthering Waves, especially since the CBT2 is coming tomorrow. The question is, does this game really deserve all the hype? And what are people even hyped for? So if you want the short
they added
answer,
cats?
yes, this game does deserve all the hype it's getting.
Oh,
While
wow.
I do not think that it's a perfect game, I really think this game will be a very good game. But let's talk about the reasons, and if the game does have some problems that need to be fixed, and how
I wonder if this game's gonna kill Genshin Impact. That's the real question here.
the gacha community should treat it. Now, the first and most obvious reason to be hyped about Wuthering Waves is that the game plays well. Duh, this game just respected the most basic rule that a lot of modern gacha games aren't respecting, which is a good and fun gameplay. The gameplay...
You know what's really upsetting is that so many games like this, like, I don't know how many games I've seen that are like these open world, like stylized games that are super cool. Like Wuthering Waves or like Project Mugen or Genshin Impact. And like I think they have great gameplay and combat, but I don't want to play them because they're like gacha games. And it's like, oh fuck, right? It's like now I've got to fucking play this gacha bullshit game whenever I wish that this was just like a normal fucking video game.
This game is simply good. Almost everyone agrees on this point, and this only can make people excited for a game. Even though the gameplay is good, Kuro Games said in their current dev update that they made more optimizations to the gameplay to make it smoother, which is also very interesting because they are really trying to make the gameplay as good as possible. Players also expected something challenging from the game, and to be honest, for this point I will say that the game isn't a Souls-like game. Maybe it has the same type of boss fights, but the difficulty isn't going to be that high, and that's all.
They're never gonna make a really hard gacha game, and the reason why is because whales that spend $1,000 deserve to win. That's the reason. So any single time that you have a game where it's like, oh, well, this is going to be some like really, you know, like gacha game, and it's got like all this combat, like you can always expect that it will be easy. Yeah, you can't let somebody who spends $1,000 lose. This game does have a parry system. It has a perfect dodge system, and whenever I played it the first time, it worked actually surprisingly well.
Also what they said in the dev update. It's going to be simple, but not easy, so it's probably difficult compared to the other gacha games, but not as difficult as a Souls-like game. The game introduced so many...
I think that's probably accurate from what I've seen so far.
...ways to do combos with characters, and this mechanic called...
There are exceptions like Project Grey Raven. Or, yeah, I think it was Project Grey Raven, Perfect Grey Raven, something like that. Yeah, actually, the people that make Wuthering Waves, Kuro Games, I think they made Punishing Grey Raven. That's what it was. Yeah, they're making Wuthering Waves. It's the same developer.
Echoes, which makes you use other mobs' abilities or maybe bosses' abilities. They also said that they are adding elusive echoes that will probably be rare and add a special type of gameplay. I don't know if it's gonna be mounts or something like that, but I'm not sure about elusive echoes, but I hope that they are a very good addition and we will try it in the new CBT. Another really important thing is that this is a gacha game, and the gacha community is very hyped for a new gacha game. And this is probably the biggest gacha game that will come out, so normally the gacha community will be very hyped, and for now the gacha systems...
Oh yeah, they always get into it's always the new game, the new exciting game, abso-fucking-lutely.
Seems to be better than many other games, which also made people want to give it a try.
And also, it's not turn-based or anything like that. It's just a legit fucking open-world game that you can play. I think this is basically like Genshin Impact, but a little bit more depressing.
And a huge factor is that the game is made by Kuro Games, the same developers of Punishing Grey Raven. Punishing Grey Raven is another gacha game that so many people liked, and so many players think that it has the best gameplay out of every gacha game. While this point is debatable, we can all see how good the gameplay in this game is. And not only that, the game adds so much challenging end-game content for players to enjoy, so many good events, and it's very free-to-play friendly. So players expect that most probably these changes and additions will be implemented in Wuthering Waves. So this will make hardcore players that are coming from a game like Genshin Impact finally find what they wanted from a gacha game that is...
Yeah, this is what Tectone was saying, is that like he felt Because he was unhappy, and a lot of people are unhappy with Genshin Impact, that Genshin Impact, the hardest version of the game for Genshin Impact is easy if you are, like, good at the game at all. But I think that's, again, that's working as intended, in my opinion.
Open world that has a lot of similarities with Genshin. And I will talk about the Wuthering and Genshin comparison and how we should treat it as a community in the end of the video. But Kuro Games also does listen to the players a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. They changed so many things in Wuthering Waves based on the players' opinions. In the beta, they changed 90% of the story, which we will talk about in a minute. They also
Thank God they did. I remember, like, I went through the story for Wuthering Waves. Like, I went through, like, the first probably 2/3 of it in the beta. It sucked. It was not good. It was bad. It was
the environment and the world, and as far as we've seen in the trailer, it looks promising, unlike what we saw in the first beta. They also improved the graphics. Same things go to the characters' design, because some characters got criticized by almost everybody in terms of design, and they changed them. They even added a skip button for the story, which is something that I probably won't use personally if the story is good, of course, but we have to know that so many players do not care about the story, and they only want to play the game. Players were asking for a skip button in Genshin for years, to be honest. And here I'm not dumping on Genshin, I'm just trying to show how Kuro Games are better than a lot of other studios in terms of communication with players.
That's a really good point, and he's totally right. Like, after playing the first beta for this game and seeing the changes into the second game, that's really, really substantial. Like, they've made huge changes, and it's great to see, honestly. The story can be skipped, which means the story is meaningless. It's bad for the game. No, because people skip the story in Final Fantasy XIV, but everybody knows the Final Fantasy XIV story is pretty good, right? I mean, that's a generally accepted reality. I mean, maybe not everybody likes it, but it's generally accepted that it's good. So yeah, no, I think some people just play the game for a different reason. But I do think that if there's a lot of people asking to be able to skip your story, you should be asking yourself why that is.
And they are still planning to fix more things in the game. Because again, tomorrow we are playing another beta, and that's another important point. Which is Wuthering Waves finally reintroduced the meaning of a beta. Because for a very long time now, games are using beta tests just as an advertisement for their game. Which is also true.
Yeah, that's also a really good thing. The fact that, like, because this is what happened with Diablo 4. Is like the Diablo 4 beta was just an advertisement, right? Like, they didn't really change anything in the game, and the stuff they did change didn't need to be changed, and it just made the game worse. So if they're actually beta testing and changing the game based off of feedback, I think that is the one most important thing that any developer needs to have. Because even good games have problems eventually. So if you're not able to address those, then it's just a matter of time until the game gets worse.
True for Wuthering Waves, of course, but the other games only use beta for an advertisement, which changed the definition of a beta as just an early access for the game. That's not the case for Wuthering Waves, because they are really trying to make their game as good as possible before launch by hearing players' opinions. Now, does the game have also some things that can probably ruin it or make the experience unpleasant? There are some things that can be problematic, as any game. For example, the story. I know that they changed 90% of the story, as I said, but the first story was insanely awful. It was so bad, and this makes me worried about the new one.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know anything about the story, and I watched every single cutscene. Like, I know more about the Genshin Impact story than I do about Wuthering Waves, and I've never even played Genshin Impact.
Will they be able to pull it off and actually make a good story or not? It's a gacha game in the end. Players like me do care about the lore. And that's another point, which is it's a gacha game. You have to know that any gacha game will be held back by its systems. The gacha system can prevent some content to be added or some...
Gacha systems make the game worse. That's the way it works. And so... basically, you will have artificial handicaps and limitations that are built into this game to incentivize you to spend money on it. I can guarantee you that this game will have these systems because every single one of them has these systems.
to be added, and I'm really curious about how they will handle that. And there is also the question, is it the Genshin killer? Shut up. No, this narrative should stop. It's a new game. It's a Genshin
That
rival.
means it is. It is the Genshin killer, by the way. He just doesn't want to say it because he probably, you know, like maybe he's being paid by Hoyoverse, so like he can't say it. I guess that's probably what it is, guys. It's the Genshin killer for sure, guys.
Okay, this is definitely, it's a Genshin rival, but a Genshin killer doesn't exist. Like, the community was really embarrassing with the Toph incident, either people calling Toph the Genshin killer, or the other side of the players dumping on the game because it's like Genshin. Now you will tell me, well, the developers of Tower of Fantasy
It's actually not true. Tower of Fantasy stole all of the animations from Honkai Third Impact, not Genshin Impact. So they did steal from the same company, but it was not that game.
Did this? No,
game.
it was fake. And the guy who shared so many videos that caused all of this harm to the launch of the game and its reputation got sued by the company, and he publicly apologized. But I guess people never cared.
Oh my god, I didn't even know that.
About this since TOF is already dead. But what if other fake news like this start on Wuthering waves and many content creators eat it up and believe it? Now, of course, you can compare it to Genshin. It would be stupid to not see any inspiration from Genshin at this point, but also we shouldn't just compare to kill the game before release or to just make it the Genshin killer. I'm here blaming—
Well, for me, you can see, you're gonna see from me whenever I play this game. I think I'm gonna try it out tomorrow. I'll be able to log in and do it then. I will give it a fair shot, the same as I always do, and you will see if it's any good or not.
The two extreme sides of the story. But again, most people believe that the game is good, and this is a very good point here. The players that are gonna start rumors are probably just a minority.
Now, I don't have access
That's why we shouldn't believe them. Like, we should at least see if it's proven. I mean, I'm not saying they're gonna call it the Genshin killer, but I want you to imagine something like that. Any news, any fake news that says, oh, it's the Genshin killer. Oh, the developers are stealing your money. Oh, if you download Wuthering Waves, your privacy is stolen or something. And that is my opinion.
It's so crazy how people that are like literally invested into these gacha games will run defense for these companies that are literally getting them addicted by gambling mechanisms just to make sure that all of the money that they've spent gambling on their game doesn't go to waste whenever the game dies. Like, it's actually the funniest fucking thing, man. I love it.
Other than that, as you see, there is not that many negative things to say about the game. So, does Wuthering Waves deserves all the hype? Again, yes, it has its problems, not that much problems, but it deserves all the hype. I do believe that we will encounter more problems and find some more cool things about the game in the second beta tomorrow. I want to see your opinion in the comments, so let's do a little discussion and see what the players think and also what they expect from the beta. Do you think it's really a special game, or it will just die in a week? Anyway, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll leave you to Kafka.
If you don't subscribe to Stjork, you're gonna lose every single 50-50 in your life. And I'm gonna send you every Himiko until you subscribe. Also check his latest video, you'll love it.
I'm actually pretty sure I have Himiko almost maxed out in that game. It's pretty sad. But here's the thing. Is this going to be a special game? These games are defined primarily by their characters. So I've noticed this and learned this a lot from like watching gacha games over the last like 3 years, is that the characters in gacha games are the most defining factor on whether the game is successful or not. Honkai Star Rail, like, everybody knows Kafka. A lot of people know March 7th. That's a really big deal. And Pom Pom, yeah, they know Pom Pom. You see him all the time. Those characters matter a lot to people, and people have, like, if you look at, for example, let's go and let's open up the Honkai Star Rail subreddit. Okay. So, top post is a character. The second post, characters. Characters again. Characters again. Characters again. bit of a risky scroll. Characters again. That's all people care about. That's the real reason why people play these games. That is the biggest and strongest defining factor of why people are invested in these games.